And let's talk about SMG and this whole Buffy situation. So Sarah Michelle Gellar is still on this promotional tour of yapping about, well, she's promoting Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which I believe comes out today. It's probably out right now because it's Thursday. So they're probably showing the movie already in theaters. You know, they usually drop around 7 o'clock or whatever on a Thursday or whatever. And um Little Miss Buffy is talking about, because the thing got pulled. We're not going to see the pilot. They're not moving forward with this version of the show. I do believe down the road we will see a Buffy resurgence in some shape or form. But she recently did an interview with Page Six, I believe Page Six Radio, and she opened up about why she hopes that this pilot doesn't see the light of day. And she says because it wasn't finished and everybody would have an opinion. But yeah, I read the script, and I think regardless of the script and everything, we all have an opinion, and that script was trash. We'll get into that in a second. So, but let me get into the story. So, the Ready or Not to Here I Come star opened up about the cancel project and how it took her by surprise during a chat with Page Six radio co-hosts Evan Reel and Danny Murphy on Wednesday. She says, "I hope it doesn't. I actually hope it doesn't." Geller 48 said of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer new Sunnydale pilot getting leaked, because then everyone would have an opinion on this and that, and pilots are not finished. It wasn't done. Now, first of all, yes, because a pilot is basically an indicator of this is the tone, this is the overall direction that we want the show to go into. But um and then the network or whatever says yay or nay. But there was a lot of stuff that was coming out where Hulu wasn't really happy. And I have the article because while Deadline did their version of finding out the tea behind the scenes and speaking with sources and all other stuff, people who worked on the show, worked behind the scenes at Hulu, whatever the case is, Variety also has their version. And so we're going, while we did the Deadline one the other day, we're going to go through the Variety story after I get through what SMG had to say about Little Miss Buffy, or the lack thereof, Buffy being in the pilot. Because that was another bitch that people had to complain about. You literally had Buffy showing up in the last page of the damn pilot, and she appears literally 30 seconds like as the show is about to end. And my thing is this: if you're gonna do a Buffy show where you're calling it Buffy New Sunnydale, you can't have Buffy as a bona fide cameo and then you trying to shove these new group of kids down our throat. Because I feel like when you're doing a show that is based around Buffy per se, we're in an era of, well, I feel like with millennials and some Gen X, we're at a point where it's about nostalgia. We're in this nostalgia vibe as of late. Why do you think like when they lean heavily on nostalgia with Scream 7, even though the script was a hot mess, the movie is like one of the highest grossing films of the franchise because they leaned heavily into the nostalgia. Yes, story took a back seat, and some interesting plot points took a back seat over the fact that y'all played at the nostalgia with Sydney and everything else. But for the most part, if you're going to do a show called Buffy New Sunnydale, you need to have a little more Buffy in the script. So, and then all of a sudden, then they also said she used the alias name Anne. I'm like, wait, first of all, her name is Buffy Ann Summers. I'm like, is it considered an alias? Because remember, they had an episode called Anne where she got kicked out of her mother's house because she was busy trying to save the world. That was in season 4, right? When the finale of the high school, or was that season 3? It was like the big finale with the school and the mayor and all the other stuff. And then Buffy had to go figure out how to live on her own. So she became a maid, but not a maid, a waitress. She became a waitress, called herself Anne, which was her middle name. So she was going by that because she didn't want people to know she was Buffy. And then something drew her to come back to Sunnydale and all the other stuff and get her life and come back to the calling of her being a Slayer. So they were kind of having her going by Anne again while she was living in New York, which I didn't like that. But I guess maybe they were trying to do that as sort of a callback to that episode. So you were trying to do callbacks to a lot of things where the fans would get all the little Easter eggs, but script wise, it wasn't working. But anyway, let's get back into the story. So Geller went on to explain that she and Chloe Zhao, who were signed on as director and the when the until the revival was scrapped, made a pilot for the Buffy reboot on purpose because there were some new characters and they wanted to see how it goes. She says there are things you learn from it and there are things you fix. Usually a pilot doesn't air in its entirety ever, so you use that information as a learning tool. What I don't understand is why didn't they just work out the script, send the script into the studio, and have them work out all of that before they started spending all this money? Because word on the street is they spent $12 million on this damn pilot. And my thing is, if y'all spending that much money on a pilot, that's crazy. Especially if y'all keep giving notes and you want them to reshoot things, rework scripts. Like and then you're not sure if you're gonna have this thing go through. You can't keep spending and wasting that money on a project if everything is not, airtight. She also said that she also revealed that the original Buffy pilot, which went on to run for 7 seasons from 97 to 2003, had nothing to do with the show. It ultimately turned into. She said it was a different Willow. Oh, I do remember that Allison Hannigan was not the original Willow because they had another girl in the pilot, and then they brought in Allison Hannigan afterwards. So, and then they said it was a very different show, but those are learning tools, and that's what a pilot is. Now, as for the version of the pilot script that reportedly got leaked, Gellar insisted that it isn't correct and asked Buffy fans not to watch the pilot should it somehow get released. Why do I feel like that? I love you, Sarah, but I feel like you're full of shit in this way. Now you're trying to say, oh no, that script isn't right. So somebody went and created a whole AI script and pretending that is the actual script. No, because I've heard from very reliable sources who got the script, posted some pages of the script. Shout out to Robert Meyer Burnett because I saw it on his Twitter. And other people got a hold of the script, posted pages of the script on Twitter, and I read it. So I'm going to go by reliable sources who have friends within the industry that are posting pages and are letting us know what's going on. Sarah's up in here trying to save face. I mean, I know we love Sarah Michelle Gellar and we love her being Buffy and everything, but quiet as it's kept, let's not also forget she kind of thumbed her nose at playing Buffy at one point and wasn't really with the shits regarding the show. I truly believe that even then, and maybe sort of now, she still doesn't understand and truly show her overall appreciation for a role that pretty much put her on the map and made her famous. Yes, she got the Emmy and she was over there playing Kendall over there on All My Children and became this big thing. I wonder if I'm trying to remember, was she on All My Children when Michael B. Jordan and Amanda Seyfried was there? She might have been. But also, I just feel like, yeah, now years later, you're living for this situation. But I feel is this: if we're gonna do Buffy or whatever, you can't come back as a cameo. You have to find a way to come back. I wouldn't say full time because look, Michael C. Hall been trying to go off do so many other things, but people want him back as Dexter. And Showtime at one point created a prequel that you were on, Miss, playing the police. What was she? I forgot what her job was. She might have been the captain or whatever, but she was on that season of the prequel to Dexter, which was a good show, by the way. Even the guy that played Dexter looked like Dexter, or Michael C. Hall. And then it was like when they brought Michael C. Hall back, they were like, "Oh, it's confusing." And so then they ended up canceling the prequel, and then they brought the other version back because that's what the fans wanted. If you're gonna do Buffy and it's so cucked around her, and this is the version y'all want to go with, you have to bring Sarah Michelle Gellar back. I'm not saying that you need to be up in there full time, but you got to put in a lot of the work and a lot of the episodes. So juxtapose you alongside this other Slayer and having to kind of go back and forth. But if you don't want to come back, I feel like maybe y'all need to just focus on another Slayer in that universe, or maybe do a Buffy miniseries introducing other Slayers that could potentially get that spinoff. Because one of the things we have to remember, Buffy is the godmother of all supernatural shows of my generation. If it wasn't for Buffy, we would not have Supernatural, we would not have Teen Wolf, we would not have, some of the other supernatural bent shows that we were sitting there loving growing up. Vampire Diaries and all those shows, because Buffy was the one that kind of put a lot of those shows in the map. I mean, I think more or less Vampire Diaries came from the popularity of Twilight, but still, you know what I mean. It was big on the CW and all that other stuff. So, um, they said there are two longtime Buffy fans there are two longtime Buffy fans could do to make the cancel reboot right. Stream the original show and go see the newest movie, Ready or Not, too. That's what you could do right now. That's all we can do right now. So she basically wants y'all to go out and show that if you make Ready or Not to a hit, because it is a going up against Project Hail Mary. I don't know how well that's gonna do. Because quiet as it's kept, as good of an actor Ryan Gosling is, Ryan Gosling has not been able to open up a movie on his own. I mean, y'all remember, even though it was a good movie, y'all remember The Fall Guy? That movie flopped at the box. That movie fell hard. So we talking about falling. That movie fell hard at the box office, and it was a good movie. But I just think the marketing behind it just didn't help. But we'll see how well Project Hail Mary does this weekend because it's coming out around the same time as this movie. And I already got my ticket. I'm gonna go see Ready or Not 2 tomorrow before I go to work and work this Gaga concert. So I am gonna go see the movie. Um, and I do think that people need to go to Hulu and stream the original series. There was a story I was going to bring, and I totally forgot to bring it up. That Nicholas Brendan got himself into some damn trouble recently at, I think, at the airport or whatever the case was. I'd read up on that. So if y'all expecting Xander to come back, his problematic ass, because he can't keep his personal life together, that's not happening. But if we can get Willow and all these other people to come back, I think that'd be awesome. As far as like Faith, I don't see Faith coming back because Eliza Dushku retired from Hollywood because y'all done did her wrong. A lot of you nasty ass men behind the scenes. So she's not coming back because Michael Weatherly couldn't keep his hands to himself. And then remember, she got SA'd when she was filming uh True Lies from a stunt coordinator. She posted that out. She put that out there. I think I'm trying to remember if it was in a book or she mentioned it in something. But I do remember Eliza Dushku talking about she's been assaulted in Hollywood quite a few times by men. So we want this series and all that other stuff. But speaking of the series, so I don't spend too much time on it because I probably will give a little bit more of my thoughts regarding the situation. There's more to add to the story. So Variety ended up doing a story surrounding what may have transpired also behind the scenes regarding the whole Buffy drama, where Hulu's not moving forward with Buffy the Vampire Slayer New Sunnydale. So they said the show was called Buffy the Vampire Slayer New Sunnydale, but Buffy Ann Summers is barely in it. Rather than revolving around Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy, the shooting draft for the show's pilot episode, written by sisters Nora and Lila Zuckerman, and obtained by Variety, introduces an entirely new set of characters and crucially a new Slayer, a 16-year-old high schooler named Nova. I've also heard like when they showed the casting that Nova's actually not Ryan Kira Armstrong's name in the show. I forget what her name was, but I think it begins with an R. And they said in the Zuckerman's original draft of the pilot, Buffy appears only at the end in a tag. A close reading of the script directed by Chloe Zhao may give clues as to why Hulu passed on the show, which has caused an ongoing uproar online from the Buffy faithful eager to see their favorite character return to television. Zhao, an Oscar-winning director of Nomadland, took on 2021's Eternals to mixed reviews before returning to the art house space with last year's Hamnet. Sources tell Variety that her take on Buffy may have not been mainstream enough for Hulu, although that's been disputed by Gellar, who blamed an executive at the streamer for his lack of familiarity with the original material. But back to the pilot. Now, over the course of the script for Buffy the Vampire Slayer New Sunnydale, Nova, described as a brainy introvert, discovers that she's the Slayer, and people in Sunnydale do know the mythology of what Slayers are because of what happened to the town back in Buffy's day. Now, set during a vampire weekend, a Renaissance fair like celebration of the town's dubious history, Nova takes down two actual vampires after coming into her powers. By the episode's end, the formerly friendless Nova has a new Scooby gang flanking her, to use Buffy's terminology. The script drops hints about what's to come. Her dad, a photojournalist, is overly protective and has moved them around a lot after Nova was kidnapped as a young child. And all the vampires that Buffy buried in the show's 2003 series finale when the Hellmouth collapsed in on itself. Taking Sunnydale down with it have been awakened. Nova would have her work cut out for her. Now, here's the thing. With them explaining all of that, this actually doesn't sound half bad. I like the idea of an overprotective father moving his daughter around because it's like a flip side. Buffy did not really have her father in her life. Her father was kind of like off living somewhere else. It was just her and her mother. What was her mother's name? Joyce? it was just her and her mother living together, and she was a single mother taking care of Buffy, working as working at an art dealership and all of that other stuff. And Buffy was more or less the extrovert, whereas Nova is the introvert. So I actually like the idea they flipped it over a little bit. And this girl who's sort of like to herself and introverts or whatever the case is, well, once she comes into her powers as a teenager, then she's able to now she's got to kind of be an introvert extrovert. So I kind of like that idea of them working that. Plus the Scooby Gang, her new set of Scooby Gang friends. But I'm hearing that the Scooby Gang wasn't written well, and there was the lack of chemistry on the stuff. But that could all be worked out. I definitely feel like they should still work on the idea of Ryan Kira Armstrong being a part of it and all this, so that they can still come back to it and work it out. But who knows? By the time they come to fruition and want to work on this show again, she might be a little too old to play the part. So, um, I don't know where they plan on going with this. But then they also went on to say this: Buffy has one line in the original script. After the conclusion of the Sunnydale story, the action moves to a beautiful autumn day in New York City, where a woman in a pantsuit walks into the office building for a multinational insurance company. She looks smart, professional, happy to be one of the many in a field of cubicles. Reads the stage directions, and her nameplate says Ann Summers. When one of her colleagues chides her, saying she wouldn't want to be late to the morning meeting, Buffy says, "Nope, wouldn't want that." Buffy fans can imagine Gellar delivering of the delivery of that line. Buffy happily is an anonymous drone in a cubicle, but living a normal person's life, given how conflicted she was about being the chosen one on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and bearing the burdens of, as the show puts it, saving the world a lot, which was on her tombstone. Remember that? Now, this life choice makes a certain kind of sense, but Buffy's piece wouldn't have lasted for long because on her work computer, as she's in her morning meeting, her email box starts being flooded with insurance claims from Sunnydale, California. Now, on paper, there's never been more of a slam dunk than Buffy the Vampire Slayer, New Sunnydale. Hulu was reviving Buffy the Vampire Slayer, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So now it's going into the whole situation, what went on behind the scenes, and her delivering the update of whatever happens. So the pilot definitely feels like there's some potential there. They could work on that. They may have to just up the action a little bit, tighten the chemistry with the characters, find some people that know how to deliver really interesting dialogue. And if you want to convince Sarah to come back, I feel like what needs to happen is maybe they I think maybe you need to teeter it a little more on more scenes with Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy, and then find a way of like getting her to come back to Sunnydale and working on maybe easing a lot of the nostalgia fans into these new characters and don't make it heavily influenced on the younger kids, because for me, I'm all interested in wanting to see something new and different as long as we get to see a lot of my favorite character on screen. A lot of people aren't interested in opening up their hearts and their minds to something new. So you might have to ease them in there a little bit. So heavily on the Buffy, and if she don't want to do a lot of the action, girl, you have stunt doubles. Like let them do all the heavy lifting, and you just do like your punches with the close-ups and the kicks. Like if you need to do certain close-up shots, but we need your stunt doubles to match your actual physical features. Because far too long, we could always tell when your stunt double stepped in to do all the stuff because your stunt double had a big ass than you. That's how I always knew that it wasn't Sarah Michelle Gellar on screen. Her stunt double had booty, and Sarah's a little skinny. So there was no she ain't got curves. You can't have a curvy stunt double and you basically Ozempic then, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's the latest on this whole thing. I do feel like if, yeah, moving forward, what may have to happen is that work it out to me. I know she doesn't want to be heavily into the show, but sis, their seasons are short. They're probably doing 8 to 10 episodes with Hulu. It's not like we're asking you to do 22 episodes. Those days are over in regards of shows, unless it's on a regular network. But CW is trash now, so they're not going to do it there. If you're going to be on Hulu, it's 8 to 10 episodes. Maybe they'll push for 12. But they only need 2 months of your time. The action, all the stuff, you can have your stunt doubles, whatever, step in. If you're gonna come into this, you can't come in. Ain't no half step in. You have to either be all in or just don't come back. And to me, it just felt like you were on board with this because you weren't really into this. We don't want to see you being an insurance agent. You just got, I mean, I understand this is their angle of them trying to show that Buffy's got some sense of normalcy, but um I don't know. I guess they just need to tighten it better. Hopefully, they'll revisit this sooner rather than later. Like, don't wait a good 4 or 5 years. I think you need to revisit this in a year or two. But I do agree with her that maybe what needs to happen is that y'all need to show that you want to see Sarah Michelle Gellar back on your screens by supporting and going to go see Ready or Not 2 this weekend and start binging and getting those numbers up for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's on Hulu. I'm sure it's on Disney Plus. So go there, watch the show, rewatch the show, run them numbers. So that way y'all can show the new executive over there because Bob Iger done left. He left yesterday or 2 days ago. I think he stepped down. They got a new CEO over there. So and show them people over there at Disney and Hulu that y'all want Buffy back on y'all screens. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? The latest on what Sarah Michelle Gellar had to say, and what Variety's latest expose on what had transpired behind the scenes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And also, have you checked out the script that everybody out here is calling AI, which is not damn AI? Everything ain't fake out here in these streets. Sometimes, but I know it's hard though to determine what is and what isn't real out here on Beyonce and Blue Ivy's internet. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.